All right, good morning. We're in morning right now. As promised, I'm gonna do a video here on how to do basic layout for portraits. This was requested by a couple of students before we left, so this is another review because I have gone over this with all of my students in beginning, intermediate, and advanced art, but it's a good review to have at your disposal. So, all right, we're gonna be using pencil and sketchbook paper, but whatever you have, you got. Remember, this is very basic. And once you get these sort of basic proportions down, then you can go in and really add the detail you need to make it more intricate, different, gender, different race, different ages, etc. But this is the basic layout. All right, for starters, remember, heads are not circles, they're oval shapes. So I'm gonna start off, again, guys, use those loose lines. Don't plant that wrist. All right, so kind of that egg oval shape head. And I always like to add just a little lines for the neck, otherwise it looks a little crazy. Okay, so yeah, we have lines here we're not gonna use, that's okay. Remember, it's okay to have extra lines, we'll erase them later. All right, what I like to do now is just divide it into quarters, just the head part, and it'll give us a good setup for what we're gonna do next. Very lightly, because we will of course erase these lines later. So as even as you can get, you can, actually I'm gonna go a little bit lower here. You can of course erase. If you really want to use a ruler, you can, but I just like to kind of eyeball things here. Okay, so that's pretty even. So these are our quadrants now. All right, I am going to go ahead and start from the bottom up. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my bottom quadrant here from the middle line down to the chin. That's what we're looking at right here is our chin. And I'm going to go ahead and divide that in half one more time. And again, just kind of looking at it and seeing, okay, where's my, here we go. That looks, if you kind of take your fingers and use that as your guide, that's about half. Okay, so this is my nose line. And you don't have to label this, but I'm going to do this for us. So that is actually where the bottom of my nose is going to be. And I will draw that here in a minute. And then if I go just a little bit lower, maybe not quite half of it, but 3/4, or excuse me, 1/4. And then that's going to be our lip line. And again, that's the bottom. So our bottom lip line. Okay. And that's sort of a good setup to get us there. So I'm going to go ahead and now focus on the eyes. So when I go to focus on the eyes here, I'm going to look at our middle line here. And this is just sort of our base. Now, I know you're looking at this and going, okay, that is a huge forehead. Remember, we have not added our hairline yet, and that is included on the actual face. If you think about your own skull, where does your hairline start? It's on your head. Touch your own head. So, a lot of times that's a big mistake people make is they'll start the eyeline way too high, then add hair on top of that, and then they have a very long, kind of distorted face. So this is actually our eyeline. And remember what we talked about with our eyeline, eye sockets. Think about a skull. Fill your own face and skull, and what does that look like? So I'm just going to figure out where my eye sockets are. And this is that whole area. Okay, kind of get them as even as you can. So a little uneven. I'm going to extend. And again, I'm going very light because those lines are going to be erased later. So those are my eye sockets, right? So that is important to remember. That's what we're using that middle line for. Okay, let's go ahead and figure out where our actual eye balls are going to go, and we'll build from there. The thing to think about with your eyes, and again, feel your own face. Your eye lid and the eyeball and everything inside of it will take up, the width of your socket for the most part. It will end a little short here. Everybody pretty much has almond-shaped eyes because think about what it is happening. It's an eyeball set inside of your skull, and then your skin folds over it. So that is why it is an oval shape. Now, when we start talking about how to define it as, male, female, race, different ages, that all depends on the structure and the skin and how that folds over. But for now, we just want to think about what are those almond shape. And another thing, like this one, I need to go a little bit wider here, to think about a good measurement system is you can actually always fit an entire almond shaped eye in between. So if you go, I don't know if these are wide enough or too close together, and if I look at that, yeah, I can get 3 eyes there. So that's a good little measuring system, and I'm going to go ahead and erase those lines so I don't confuse you guys. But that's sort of the setting part of that. Okay, think about your eyebrows. Everybody has some sort of eyebrows. Now they sit directly on top of your eye socket. So this is where those would go. They're important because they'll also give you that structure that leads into the structure, the cartilage of your nose. So I'm just gonna go ahead, draw some generic eyebrows there. There's the shape. We'll come in and we'll talk about the detail for that later. Okay, and then we're gonna kind of just keep on going and figure out what our nose is doing here. So remember, this gives us, feel your own face, that structure for where our noses are. Remember, noses are cartilage. They're not as strong of angles. They're very soft, but you do have protruding 3D cartilage off your face, and it has this sort of curve. So you can add 2 little curves there. For the bottom of your nose, remember, it's just a rounded V or a U. That makes more sense. So just start off with that. That's the bottom of a nose. And then you can kind of curl it out for your nostrils, right? So just those little loopies. And then you can just create more of those angles for the bit. Now we will change this up, obviously, and again, it's a big factor for different races. People have broken noses. You can really characterize somebody by a unique nose here, but that is a basic structure. You have your curved lines for your cartilage and the nostril ending here at the bottom. Okay, so then while we're down here, let's look at those lips. And you always want to think about your lips are going to be about the same width as your nose. That seems pretty small, but unless you're smiling or have, you know, a very wide grin or something, sitting still, that's what those lips are going to look like. Remember, this is the bottom of our lip. So I'm going to go ahead and just round that off a little bit and just very delicately, just a barely curved line right there as it comes off that. So again, just kind of like a almost U shape, and then I just bring that off. The bottom lip is always going to be fuller or larger than your top lip, okay? So what I'm just kind of gauging is that's going to be the bottom lip. That's going to be the break between the 2 lips. And then I'm just going to kind of create that little bit of a peak that everybody has, the curve of the lip, and then kind of figure out, you know, my spacing there. It's a little close to my nostrils, so I'm going to kind of bring that down just a little bit lower. Okay, so again, break of my lip. This is now the top lip, and you know, not people tend to do like perfect heart shapes. That's very rare unless you have altered lips. It's a bit more subtle, and again, just use that rounded U shape, bring it to rounded peaks, and then pull it down. And then connect it to the lines you already have. Mine's a little uneven here, but this is just practice. That's all good. And then again, you'll change it up according to how this person looks. If it's, you know, someone with lipstick and it's very pronounced, but that's a basic lip for you, and you can change it from there. And as we can see, it's about the same width as your nostrils, so that works out. So there you go. Got your lips, got your nose. Now let's go focus on the eyes real quick. And again, if you guys remember, like in class I talk about, you really want to think of the anatomy. What is the anatomy of your eye look like? Sorry. It's an eyeball, right? So your eyeball, I'm going to just draw it separately up here. You have the white, which I'm completely blanking on what that is called, so I'm sorry, biology people. You have your iris, which is that colored part, and then you have your pupil, which is inside. So it's kind of 3 circles, but we also have the skin that comes around it. And we've already established that skin layout with our almond shape. So rather than drawing a full circle, you just want to fit it inside that almond shape you already have. Now think about, or look in a mirror even, how much white you can see of your eye. It's quite a bit, right? You have, it takes up the most of that area. These little corners are important though. That's your tear duct, right? That's where that little fleshy, muscular part is. A lot of times if the lid is closed, you won't really see that corner, but you might have something there as well. So just think about it physically, or like I say, look in a mirror. All right, so then our next part is our iris, and that takes up another large part of your eye, and that's the color part. No matter what color your eyes are, that's going to take up a fairly large size. Now this looks kind of buggy-eyed, but we're not done, obviously, right? So keep it pretty light and simple. And then your pupils are very dark, and they're in the center. I'm just going to go ahead and fill that in with color because we know that's going to stay pretty dark. And then you can add a highlight in there as well, but we'll get into that when I talk to you guys about shading. Okay, so finally we got to figure out what's happening with our eyelids here. So depending on lots of things and the expression you want your person to have, you'll develop where that bottom eyelid's going to go. If you're just resting and staring, like to do a selfie or something, it's usually about a quarter. It's not very much that eyelid's going to cover. The squintier it gets, the more, you know, angry or concentrated this person's going to look. The wider is more surprise, etc., etc. Think about your actual lid. Feel the actual lids in your eye sockets. What are they doing? They come up about midway through your socket, right? So you kind of want to build that up. And I'm just following the shape I've already created with my almond eyelid here. Okay, so it's just another rounded shape like that. And I'm going to come in, just erase so I don't get confused here. All right, and then below, same thing. Remember, it's going to cover part of that bottom eye out, right? And then you have that little bit of roundness that protrudes. A lot of times it looks like bags under your eyes, but it's actually just how the skin forms around the circular part of your eye. It gets a little bit more prominent on like people as they get older, and that's because the skin is getting thinner and you're having it tighter, and so that's why it looks like people who are older might have baggier eyes. But that's kind of the standard, okay? So we have our eyes, nose, mouth, eyebrows, we're set there. Eyelashes, of course, you can add. Just remember, they are directly attached to your lids, top and bottom, and they're not crazy. They're little individual hairs, and they will go in the direction of your lid that you've already created. I'm just going to erase it so you can see it a little bit more. And there's little hairs. Remember, they're abnormally clumped together if they're natural. If you have fake eyelashes, obviously they're going to be a bit different. So this looks a little bit more female, I would say, and that's because it's all very refined. It's very round. If you wanted to come in and angle up these cheeks a little bit more, square off that jaw, minimize your lips a bit more. Males also have eyelashes, obviously, so they're just, but sometimes if you do a little bit too crazy, it looks a little bit more female. The last part of this is just adding the hairline, and you want to think about that again, kind of feel your own hairline, what's happening there. Most hairlines have a top part that's fairly far away from the eyebrow line, and then will come down. And I just realized I did not do ears. Let's do ears real quick, guys. They're super important. Your ears are going to fall, and you've already got the setup for them here. Your ear line is always going to be the width of your eye and the bottom of your nose. And remember, ears are just a large curve out, comes in very close, and then a small curve in. On this side, curve out, come in close, curve in. Depending, if you're looking straight on, you're not going to see a lot of what is happening detail-wise with the ear, but you think about what's happening on your own. You got cartilage that protrudes out. You got the ear canal that goes in. It's a little bit more protruding, so it's like it's going a bit more 3D, and so then you could just add that, but you're not going to see. And if you have hair that falls down, you're not going to see that either. But ears are important, and those are your ears lines, so think about that in terms of the width. Think about where your part is. Most people have a part directly in the center. If you're doing bangs or something, you know, they come down almost to the eye line. If it's more of a higher hairline because it's male, it'll stay up here. But again, you're not going to build too much more up off of the head you've established. Think about hair, you know, unless you're doing some crazy hair design, it's going to stay up here, and you can start adding individual hairs and etc. So that is a basic structure for a portrait. I'm going to show you guys here. This is using that basic structure and just adding some shading and whatnot. I'll do one specifically on shading here next. And so because I made this male, I angled the jaw up a little bit more. I add a little bit more of the bagginess underneath the eyes. It causes shadow. I did a real quick hatching for my shading. And again, more protruding like cheekbones and chin, smaller mouth, obviously higher hairline, etc. But that is a very simple way to just take our simple layout there, and then you can just sort of refine it, use those shading skills, and create something really neat. Okay, so next one, I will work on the shading aspect of facial features for you guys. Thank you for watching.